So do you ever just feel like your mind is just constantly racing with all the things you got going on? You got kids stuff, work stuff, family stuff, Bitcoin, AI. You got the political climate. And don't forget that to-do list just keeps getting longer and longer. And what's crazy is it seems like everybody else is functioning just fine while you're feeling overwhelmed by all the things that's happening. Well, today is your lucky day because in this video, we're going to talk about how to be more productive and how to simplify your life for maximum focus. Now, when it comes to being more productive, most people are looking for a shortcut. They're looking for a hack. They're looking for ways to make things easier. They'll time block their calendar. They'll put headphones on to eliminate distractions. They'll put their phone on do not disturb so they can't be disturbed. And I'm not saying those things don't work. So don't get me wrong, because those things do work just until they don't. Look, if you don't remember anything from this video, remember this one thing. No matter what type of tactics you have, no matter what type of shortcuts you have, no matter what type of hacks, no matter what things you have that make your life easier, we will always act in alignment to who we believe ourselves to be. So if you believe yourself to be a person who gets overwhelmed easily, you're going to find things to be overwhelmed about. You're going to find ways to add problems to your plate. If you believe that you're a person who is unproductive, a person who is lazy, you're going to find ways to be lazy. You're going to find ways to be unproductive. If you believe you're a person who procrastinates, you're going to find ways to sabotage your momentum every single time. See, because it's our belief that drives our behavior, and it's our behavior that produces our result. And when I say a belief, I'm not talking about something you want to believe about yourself. I'm not talking about a conscious thought or something you think every now and then. But a belief is something that we do without question. For instance, let me ask you this. Before you sit down, do you ask yourself if this chair is going to hold you? Do you inspect the chair? Do you look and see who made it? Do you look at the legs of the chair, shake it, make sure it's strong enough, check the weight limit? No, you just sit down. Because you believe that chair is strong enough to hold you. You have enough evidence to say that I've sat in so many chairs and none of them have broken. Maybe one, if so, right? Or a couple, but not enough compared to how many chairs I sat in, that the likelihood of this chair breaking is very slim, very, very small. And I've seen other people sitting in chairs and they haven't broken. So the likelihood of this chair breaking, it ain't gonna happen. So your brain says, this is something that I really don't have to think about. This is not something that I have to keep in the forefront of my mind because it's not a threat. It's not something that I have to worry about. So it creates a automatic pattern of habit. It creates a belief. And we have beliefs about ourselves, things that we do without question, things that we say without question, that we don't actively recognize because it's not at the forefront of our mind. It's not a conscious thought. See, many people think they have a productivity problem, but productivity is not the problem. Identity is the problem, because attempting to be more productive by adding all these hacks and shortcuts and all of these different things without shifting your identity is like putting a Band-Aid on a leaky pipe. It might hold it for a little bit. Maybe you might get a week out of it, depending on the brand of the Band-Aid, right? But if you send enough pressure through that pipe, that Band-Aid's flying off. If you allow that Band-Aid to sit on that pipe long enough with enough water running through it, that Band-Aid is going to get soaked and eventually it's not going to be able to stick. So that's the same thing that happens when we're attempting to be more productive, trying all of these hacks, these shortcuts without shifting our identity. The simplest way to be more productive is not just a shift in behavior, but it's a shift in our beliefs, more importantly. Because in life, we don't get what we want, we get who we are. Because it's who you are that is always going to show up. And it's who you are is how you will always perform. Doesn't matter what type of changes you make, you will always fall back down to what you believe about yourself. See, but focus is not something that we have, it's something that we train. And you train it by becoming the type of person who is focused and productive. Again, it's going back to that belief. But see, a lot of people run into the problem is they don't even allow themselves the time to grow into that identity. And identity is just what you believe to be true or untrue about yourself. They don't even allow themselves to grow into that identity, or they don't know that they need an identity shift. So they're attempting to do all of these different behaviors. Well, I'm going to be more productive by doing this. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to eliminate distractions here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then when things aren't working, they get overwhelmed. And then they chalk it up to, oh, I'm overwhelmed because I just got too much things going. I got too many things going on. I got too many things on my plate. But overwhelm doesn't come from having too many things to do or too many things on your plate necessarily. It kind of can, but that's not the root of it. The root of it comes from three things. You either have unfinished tasks, you either have decisions you haven't made, or you have undefined priorities. When you have things that you haven't clarified, things that you haven't made decisions on, when you have things that you haven't finished, the brain is going to treat those things all as important. And if everything can't be a major decision. I think in psychology, they call it the Zeigarnik effect, where when you have unfinished tasks, unmade decisions, undefined priorities, it drains you of your mental energy. That's the Zeigarnik effect. When you have things that you haven't finished, all of these things on your plate coming from those three things, it's going to drain you of your mental bandwidth, and then you're going to feel overwhelmed. So that's where that comes from, not necessarily having so much to do. If everything feels like it's important, if every decision feels like a major decision, of course you're going to feel overwhelmed. But you can't treat everything like a major decision, because at the end of the day, you can't outthink overthinking. Overthinking has never solved the problem, never will. When's the last time that you said, man, I'm so glad that I overthought that problem, because if I didn't, man, things might have got bad. I probably wouldn't have made the right decision. No. If anything, you're saying to yourself, man, why didn't I solve that problem faster? I put all that mental energy, all that time in this simple decision when all I had to do is make a decision, boom, move on, done. But instead, I spent too much time rehearsing the problem over and over and over, which made it worse. Look, problems get worse and problems get bigger because of two things: time and attention. When you allow your problem time to sit, the worse it's going to get. It's like the law of entropy, or the second law of thermodynamics. Thermodynamics, which basically says anything left to itself would naturally move to disorder, right? So what that means is if you don't take a shower for a week, you don't smell better by the end of the week. You smell worse. If you don't brush your teeth and rinse your mouth out for a week, your breath doesn't smell better. It smells worse. If you don't go to the gym for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months, you don't get stronger. You get weaker. And it's the same thing with problems. When you allow your problem to sit and you don't solve the problem don't get better. The problems get worse. So time is something that makes our problems worse. The second one is attention. When you're constantly feeding your problems attention, meaning you're telling yourself a certain story about the problem, you're not necessarily talking to other people. Yes, you can be feeding it attention by talking to other people, but more so people feed the problem by the stories they're telling themselves about the problem. They're rehearsing the problem over and over and over. Man, I can't believe they said that to me. You know what? Dang, I should have said this. I should have said, why didn't I say that? You know what? How can I go back to them and tell them what I really feel, but not in a way where I'm bringing it up where I look stupid? How can I bait them back into the conversation so I can say the things that I want to say? Because I wish I had thought about this, or I wish I had thought about that. When you're doing that, you're rehearsing the problem. That means you're feeding your problem attention. And when you're feeding your problem attention, the bigger your problem's going to get. It's just like us. When you decide you want to eat more, you don't get smaller, you get bigger. So it's the same thing that happens with our problems. When you're constantly feeding your problem attention, your problem is going to get bigger. Look, 95% of our problems need to be solved without deliberation, without much thought, and they need to be solved very quickly. Because problems hate quick decisions, because decisions give you direction. Decisions give you clarity. Decisions give you peace. They hate decisions that are made quickly. See, here's a tip. If you want to know if this is a major decision or a small decision, all you have to do is ask yourself one question. Will I be still dealing with the consequences of this decision 5 to 10 years from now? And if the answer is no, just make a decision to move on. There's no need to harp on the decision and trying to have everything perfect and perfectly laid out, or trying to make the right decision, because sometimes the decision is not as simple as right and wrong. Sometimes it's just what's better and what's best. That's it. Sometimes a decision has a good side and a bad side, and they feel like they're almost equal. So you just got to make the best decision out of what you got, right? But it still doesn't mean that each decision needs to require a lot of thought. 95% of our decisions should be made quickly without deliberation. The last 5% is the decisions that you actually take your time on, right? Because a decision is action, and action is peace. And when you have peace, you have clarity. And when you have clarity, you have relief, right? So you just want to simply make a decision. Now, let's talk about how do you become the type of person who is productive, who is focused, who is clear, who is in control of their time. Most people go to, I just want to eliminate all the distractions. I just need to get rid of every single distraction that's bothering me, every distraction that's in my way. I just need to eliminate those, and then I'll be able to be productive. I'll be able to be focused. But here's the truth. Distraction is a symptom of a distorted vision. So that means distraction is not the problem. It's a symptom of the problem. The root cause of the problem is distortion. Because when your vision is unclear, when you have no direction, when you don't wake up with intention, everything competes for your attention. That means you're reacting to every task, every notification, every phone call, every text, every email, everything. It's almost like, you know, that game Whack-A-Mole that you see at a carnival or at a festival where you have the holes and the moles are coming up and you're trying to hit them. When you don't wake up with direction, when you don't wake up with intention, then it's like you're paying it's like your life is a game of Whack-A-Mole. Every time a mole comes up, you're hitting that one. Every time, boom, you're trying to hit that one. Then you're trying to hit that one. Then you're hitting that one and that one. But when you wake up with intention, when you wake up with direction and focus, you're saying, okay, I picked this one hole, and I'm going to only focus on this one hole. I know all these other moles are going up, and I know they're rising, but as soon as this mole comes out of this hole, oh, I'm knocking his head off. Straight up. That's when you wake up with intention. That's when you wake up with focus. So distraction is a symptom of a distorted vision. When you have a clear vision of who you want to become, when you have a clear vision of where you want to go, that's when you can be more productive. That's when, because you're taking on the identity of what it means to be a productive person. Again, focus and productivity is not something we just have, but it's something that we become. It's a type of person that we become. It's something that you train within yourself, and you train yourself by becoming that person. And the way you become that person is by using this framework that I call D.A.R.E. Now, it's called D.A.R.E because D.A.R.E means to have the courage to do something. And here's the honest truth. 98% of people won't even get on the path of chasing their highest potential and who they can become. Only 2% of people in life will make the necessary changes within themselves to become the person they are capable of becoming. Most people will talk about it. Most people will agree with you. But only 2% of people are willing and will actually take the actions and effort toward becoming that type of person. Right? So if you are a part of that 2%, if you do consider yourself a person who is elite, if you do consider your person who is someone that is after something more than just being mediocre in life, someone that is after something more than just fitting in with everybody else, then this formula is probably the simplest but also best ways for you to shift your identity so you can become that person. And number one, it starts with you want to define and decide, right? See, most people want things to change, but they're unwilling to change. They want their circumstances to change, but they don't want to change themselves. But the first part of changing ourselves, the first part of transforming into something new, to transforming into more abundance, to more love and peace within ourselves, into more profit, is you have to clearly define who it is you want to become. Because clarity is power. And once you clearly define who it is you want to become, the place you want to go, and I would emphasize that the becoming who it is that you want to become is more important than what you actually want. But you need both of them. You have to have an aim. You have to have a direction that you want to go, because if you don't have a direction, you're just going to end up going nowhere. If you're trying to lead other people, if you're trying to lead yourself and you have no direction, you're just going to go in circles. And eventually you'll end up right back where you are, because again, we will always act in alignment to who we believe ourselves to be. It's our belief that drives our behavior. It's our behavior that produces our result. So eventually you're going to start behaving with your old patterns and habits and end right back up where you started. So you have to have a clear aim on where you want to go. After that, you have to decide to become that person. Some people know a direction, but they don't decide. They say, well, I'm going to choose to become that person. A decision and a choice is different, because when you decide something, you're giving yourself no plan B. You only got plan A. If plan A don't work, then I got to fall back on plan A, because that's all I got. I can't go back. But when you make a choice, you're saying, I got plan A, I got plan B, I got C, D, E, F, G, right? You have all of these different scapegoats. So when things get challenging, you can start to negotiate with yourself and say, you know what? I'm going to start over. I'm going to start back on Monday. I'm going to start next week. I'm going to start fresh at the top of the year. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Give myself a little break. Give myself a little time. And then before you know it, years and years go by and you're still in the same spot. So you want to define and decide to become that person. Next is alignment. You want to align your thoughts and actions with the type of person who already has the results that you want. You want to align your thoughts and action with success. As Jim Rohn always says, success leaves clues. So if someone has a result that you don't have, they're likely doing something that you're not doing. They likely believe something about themselves that you don't believe. So you want to identify what that person believes about themselves and align your beliefs with their beliefs. You want to find out what behaviors that person is doing, align your behaviors with that person's behaviors. Because when you do that, that's when things start to shift. That's when you start to shift your identity and transform your identity. And again, you want to align your thoughts, you want to align your words, you want to align your behaviors. You want to align everything with success. Because again, success leaves clues. But also failure does too. So if you're not getting the results that you want, you need to shift how you're looking at it. You need to shift and align with what success looks like. Not what you think success looks like, but what success actually is. And then next, you want to reinforce your behaviors through small wins. Success doesn't come from these large steps, these massive actions. You don't get from the bottom of the stairs to the top of the stairs. Let's say if there's 20 stairs, by jumping from 1 to 20. But the best way to get to stairs is to take one step at a time. That's how you build momentum in in the shift of your identity, taking it one step at a time. And the best way to do it, I believe, is to start small, embarrassingly small, keep it simple, and start slow. Because when you do that, you allow yourself a foundation. Think of it like a plant. If you plant a seed, as soon as you plant it and water it, it's not growing up out of the ground. Instead, it's going to take some time because it's building a foundation by building roots in the ground. And once those roots have matured enough and become strong enough and has built a solid foundation, that's when it starts to sprout up. So just because you aren't seeing any results, just because you're starting slow, starting small, keeping it simple, you may not see any results immediately. And just because you're not seeing any results, just realize that you're building a solid foundation, which will sustain you throughout the process. It's just like building a house. If you build a house where the foundation is cracked, where the foundation is messed up, it can be a small little crack. And if you go over that crack and you just say, you know what, I'm just going to brush over this and build this beautiful house anyway. The house might be beautiful, but eventually that foundation is going to cause some major problems. So just remember, you're building that foundation, and every time you make a decision, no matter how small it is, every time you make a decision toward the person you are attempting to become, you are casting a vote for your new identity and transformation that you want to make. So that's reinforcement. Next, lastly, you just want to evolve your identity, right? So many people get comfortable with who they think they are. They get comfortable with the amount of money that they can make, who they can become, the amount of love they can give, the kind of perspective they can have, the kind of beliefs they can have. They stop growing, they stop learning, they stop developing. So you want to continuously evolve your identity, because the person that you are today can become so much more. The person you think you are today, or the person you think you can become so much more than that. So you want to continuously evolve. You want to continuously strive for new levels, strive for new standards. And you want to continuously grow and learn about yourself. Remember, it's a lifelong journey. This is not a one and done type deal. You're going to be constantly evolving in your discipline, constantly evolving in your productivity. You're going to have things that change in life. You're going to have situations that change. And you're going to have to adapt to those things, because you constantly want to evolve in your identity. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Also, I have my book, Winning Within, currently available on Amazon. Thank you to all that have supported me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.